In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, I am going to talk about Alex Sarr and why he has a strong case to be the first player selected in June's draft. This is going to be the first of a 5, maybe even 6-part series where I discuss and cover the candidates who I believe have a chance, even if it's an outside chance, to be the first pick in the 2024 NBA draft. So stay tuned while I make a case for Alex Sarr to be the top pick in June's draft. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I am your host, Rafael Barlowe, the director of scouting for NBA Big Board and the founder of NBA Draft Junkies. And if you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe. I want you to like, I want you to share, leave a comment, because we are your source for NBA draft content 5 days a week. And also, you can click the bell where you can get notifications every time we post, because like I said, 5 days a week. It may not be every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but 5 out of the 7 days, you are going to get some NBA draft content, whether it's from me, my brother James, Leaf Tulane, or Richard Stamen, because we are your source for draft content. And we're getting closer to March. March is just around the corner. So that means March Madness is heating up. And then, of course, NBA fans are finding out, hey, my team is not going to make the playoffs. So if you are a fan of a team that's not going to make the playoffs, then you need to be locked in now to the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, because we are going to talk about, break down, agree, disagree on some of the prospects that your team may be bringing in for workouts or even select. But before we begin, I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the most exciting and the easiest way to play daily fantasy sports. All you have to do is go to prizepicks.com/lockedon and use the code, but it must be in all lowercase. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA and you can get a first deposit match up to $100. So anyway, let's just get right into Alex Sarr and why I think he has a very, very strong chance to be the first pick in the 2024 NBA draft. Now, this draft class is wide open. It's wide open. It's not like last year where we knew Victor was going number 1. The year before we knew, well, we didn't know. I'll put it like that. We didn't know, but we knew the top 3. We knew it was between Jabari Smith, Chet Holmgren, Paolo Banchero. So we knew. This year, we don't know. We have an idea. Depending on which mock you look at, Alex Sarr may be number 1. It may be Nikola Topic. I've seen Cody Williams number 1. I've seen Zachary Riesenshire number 1. So I will cover all of those players in upcoming episodes. But this one is all about Alex Sarr. Now, Alex Sarr, I'll give you a little background on him. He's 7'1" with a 7'4", 7'5" wingspan, depending on the publication. He's like a 4/5. I think he's going to begin his career playing the 4. Doesn't have the strength to play the 5, but I think ultimately he is going to be a 4 or a 5. He is 19 years old. He'll be 19 on draft day. And his offensive role, it varies. At the very minimum, I think he can be your rim runner, your vertical lob threat. But he does show the ability, or at least the potential, to be able to space the floor. He's very good at putting the ball on the floor. Defensively, I think that's where he'll make his biggest mark, or that's the skill set he'll be able to hang his hat on. He is a switchable big, but also a rim protector, which is very, very valuable. A little bit more background on Sarr. He's from France. He has an older brother, Olivier Sarr, that plays for the Oklahoma City Thunder, went to Wake Forest, went to Kentucky. And as far as Alex, he's playing for the Perth Wildcats in Australia in the NBL. Has a very unique route. He played for Real Madrid as a youth. He went to Overtime Elite, and then he left Overtime, and he decided not to go back to Europe or France or Spain, where he played before, or even the G League like a couple of his OTE buddies. He decided to go all the way to Australia, and the move has definitely paid off and worked in his favor, because he was a player that I always loved his talent. And the production and the talent, in my opinion, never mix. Like, he was a guy, I'd watch his film and you'd be like, wow, He can move. He's athletic. He has so many skills. You look at the box scores and you're like 7 points, 9 points. Didn't always, like I said, make an impact. But that was until the G League Fall Showcase, which was back in September, October. I can't remember. And I've talked about it at length. And that is when I felt like he turned the corner. And that is when I started to believe, you know what, maybe he has a chance to be a top 10 pick or top 5 pick. And now I think he could be the first pick. I had him at number 30 on my big board in August coming into the season. I mean, I had him behind some guys like Omaha Baloo, some guys like Elmarco Jackson that aren't even playing. And it just shows fit and opportunity is just the best thing that you can have as a player. And one of the things that Alex Sarr has done is maximize his opportunity down in Australia. So let me go back to some of his strengths. The biggest strength right now is really his upside and his potential. He is, like I said, 7'1", 7'4", moves like a wing. He is very skilled. He can pass. The shooting percentages aren't there yet as far as from three. But as far as the touch, I definitely think it's going to be a weapon in the future. Like I said, he can pass. He can handle, especially for a 7-footer, can attack closeouts. Just glides down the floor like he moves like a wing. Like he looks like a wing in a big's body as far as like height and length. And the passing is probably, in my opinion, his most underrated skill. I know he spent some time in the Real Madrid system. I went to Madrid back in November, I believe, October or November. And I went and I spent some time studying like how they develop passers, because if you pay attention to basketball in Spain, like it's very rare that you'll find a Spanish player that is not a plus passer. So I went back and went to like different practices from middle school kids to girls to Real Madrid's senior team to their junior team, and just watch how they practice and watch how they play. And passing is heavily emphasized there, and I think that has played a role in why Alex Sarr is such a good passer as a 7-footer. So I'm a big fan of his upside as a playmaker. But as far as just offense, I think that if he puts it all together, you're talking about a vertical lob threat that can shoot threes, that can attack closeouts, that can make defenses pay if they double team him. And then once he gets stronger, I think he's going to be an effective low post scorer, has a high release on his shot, can shoot over the top of smaller defenders, has this LaMarcus Aldridge type turnaround jumper that he likes to use, and he's also a good mid-range shooter already. So if he puts it all together, I don't think that there is a better player in this draft. That's only on the offensive end. When we return, I'll talk about his defense and why I believe that he's the best defensive player in this draft class. Stay tuned. All right, let's talk about Prize Picks. And if you're not familiar, you may ask, Rafael, what is Prize Picks? All I can say is Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app. It has over 3 million members. It is the easiest and the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you have to do is pick more or less than 2 to 6 players, and you're just predicting the stats. You're going against the stats, and all you have to do, pick 2 to 6 players. You're not playing against your buddies. You're not playing against some of the sharks or the bots. You're just playing against the stat projections, and you can let the winnings roll in. And it is demon time on Prize Picks. And with demon time, you can now win up to 100 times your money. You heard that right. 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. So you can turn $10 into $1,000. Demons and goblins are the newest and most exciting way to play Prize Picks. Squares are marked with red demons or green goblins, and you get different payouts. You can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is easy. It's very simple to play. You can make and submit your picks in less than 60 seconds. You can get your money out fast. It is easy, and it has an enormous selection of players and stat types, and that is what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. That is prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA, and you have to use the code in lowercase letters, and you can get a deposit match up to $100. Locked On has launched the absolute first ever 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it is also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like, it just doesn't stop, all day, every day, covering the top sports stories of the day with our local hosts. And then we have the national shows that cover every league across the board. So find Locked On Sports Today, which is now available on the free Fire TV channels app on Amazon. All right, second segment. In the first segment, I talked a little bit about Alex Sarr's background and his history and then his offensive strengths. But in this segment, I want to cover his defense, which some people believe is his best asset, his best skill set, and basically the skill that he will be able to hang his hat on at least early in his career until his offense catches up with his defense. Now, I mentioned how well Sarr moves. He moves like a wing, and this definitely helps him out on the defensive end. He can defend out on the perimeter. And the play that sticks out to my mind, and if you are an everydayer, I apologize because you're going to hear this story again. But there was a play in the G League Fall Invitational where he had isolation against Ron Holland. At the time, Ron Holland was a projected number 1 pick in the draft. Ron is extremely athletic, super quick first step, and Sarr sat down and matched him step by step and basically cut off his water. You don't find that with many 7-footers who are comfortable defending out in space on the perimeter, and that's what Alex Sarr brings to the table. But then even if you get by him, he has the length and the athleticism to block your shot from behind. He can serve as a rim protector. Defensively, he's been compared to Jaren Jackson Jr., which I'll get on that in a second. But you hear what I'm talking about. Jaren Jackson Jr. was the Defensive Player of the Year, and I think Sarr has the talent to be that level of a defender. I think he's an elite defender. I think he's the best defender in this class. You may say Ryan Dunn from Virginia. That is a totally fair assessment. But I think Alexander Sarr can be the type of player that can anchor your defense. And again, 7'1", 7'5" wingspan. He's elite laterally. And I just think the foundation for him to be a great defensive player is there. He covers a ton of ground. The motor is actually pretty good on defense. He's constantly rotating on the help side. I just think, and I keep saying it, I just think that he is going to be a special defender. Now, what position is he? That is something that I think is going to be changing. I think he'll start games or start his career at the 4. I think early in his career, it is best to probably pair him with a physical 5. But I could be wrong because there were people that felt that way about Victor Wembanyama, and he has actually thrived as the 5 as opposed to playing the 4. I do think Sarr may have some issues with physicality early in his career. I'll talk about that when I cover his weaknesses in the next segment. But I do think that you can play him at the 4 or the 5. Maybe you start him at the 4, but maybe you close games with him at the 5. I think where he plays, whether it's the 4 or the 5, may also depend on his shooting, but we're talking about his defense right now. Again, the length and the foot speed will allow him to defend all over the floor, match guard step by step. All NBA defender, that is my prediction. Some of the stuff that people are saying about Sarr defensively is what we heard about Evan Mobley a few years back. And I think Evan Mobley is a terrific NBA defender. And I think Sarr has the same tools and the same gifts. They're both thin. And as far as Jaren Jackson Jr., one of the comparisons to Jackson Jr. is talking about, Triple J can defend in space, he can block shots, but he's not a particularly strong rebounder. And that is one of the knocks on Alex Sarr, is that he's not necessarily a great rebounder. All right, when we return, I'm going to talk about the areas of improvement or the red flags or the flaws that could prevent Alex Sarr from being the number 1 pick, or even if he is the number 1 pick, that could prevent him from maximizing his crazy outwardly talent. Stay tuned. All right, the next segment is brought to you by BetterHelp, because sometimes we need the opportunity to get some stuff off our chest, whether it's big or small. There are certain things that can really start to bother you or get to you, and it's very important for you to get that out, get it out your system, especially to someone who is unbiased in your life. So today I want to talk about how I feel about something. And you might even be thinking about the same thing this week. For me, I want to say what I'm going through, but one of my challenges is that I am a new father. I have a 19-month-old son, and I have a podcast that does about 200 episodes a year, and I have a newsletter that goes out to NBA teams and over 7,000 subscribers. What makes it challenging for me is that during the daytime, while my wife is at work and my son is in school, I am constantly working on my podcast, coming up with content for the podcast. And then I need to write my newsletter, but I need to write to make it engaging. But then in the evenings, when my wife comes home from work, I want to spend time with my wife and my son because obviously I want to keep my family intact. But then that is when all the games are going on. And that is when I have to watch basketball. I have to know what I'm talking about. For me, it can be challenging trying to balance out this job that I absolutely love and career. In reality, the person I can talk to is my wife or friends and family, but there's not really anybody that I know that has the same exact schedule. There are people that I know that face the same challenges, but that's why BetterHelp can come in and basically be a great sounding board. And therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports team, even though there's some really, really passionate fans and the wins and losses take a toll on their life. And maybe that's why BetterHelp can be there for you. If you are thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try because it is entirely online and it is designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. So visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnba to get 10% off your first month. That is betterhelp.com/lockedonnba to get 10% off your first month. All right, in this last segment, I want to talk about some weaknesses or areas of concern for Alexander Sarr. The most glaring weakness, in my opinion, is that he needs to get stronger. He definitely needs to bulk up to be able to handle the physicality of the NBA. Now, the Australian NBL is a pretty physical league, so I think that has helped prepare him. That will at least give him somewhat of a taste of the physicality in the NBA. Now, if you're an old school NBA fan, you're probably like, they're not physical. They were physical in the 80s and 90s. Yes, that is fair. But I still think Alexander Sarr will need to bulk up and get stronger, especially if he's going to play center on the next level. Now, he's not going to be playing against teenagers. He's going to be playing against grown men. Nobody can guard Jokic or Embiid, but there's also centers like Valanciunas that are just definitely stronger than him that he's going to have to defend and be able to guard in the post, because there are times where, despite his length and athleticism, it looks like he's better suited to defend in space and on the perimeter than in the post. So I think there are times where teams are going to try to exploit him in the post, give him the ball against a bigger, wider center, and make him play defense. And that's where he kind of struggles a little bit at, because he just doesn't have the strength. Now, he has the length to alter shots, but may not have the strength to keep the bigs out of their sweet spots. Another area that is a little bit concerning for me, and this dates back to from when I was watching him on the youth levels, is the energy and the motor and the effort are not always consistent. So going back to the youth levels, I always felt, and I mentioned it in the open, that I didn't think the numbers and the potential always matched up. And that's because I didn't feel like he played, for lack of a better term, balls to the wall. I didn't think that his motor and his energy were great. But then in the fall showcase or the G League Fall Invitational, I thought his motor and effort levels were great. He defended all over the floor. He was blocking shots. He played with this chip on his shoulder like he had something to prove. He was talking trash. Whooping shots into the crowd, staring guys down. All of that is extra, but it showed a competitive fire that I felt like hadn't always been there. Now, if he can maintain that competitive fire that he showed in flashes this year in Australia and at the G League Invitational, then my concerns are very minimal. Now, I'm not expecting him to be like Kevin Garnett, where he's just fired up. KG was wired different. And you can still have a great motor and passion without being expressive, which, again, I actually like the fact that he was expressive against the Ignite. But I do think that there are some concerns about the motor, and can he bring it consistently 82 games a year, for 30-something minutes a game, because to me, if he maximizes his potential, part of it is because he's playing with a great motor and great energy night in and night out. And I think that the motor often comes and goes, and it depends on how well he's playing. So like I said, when he played against the Ignite at the G League Fall Invitational, he was playing well, so the motor was revved up. But when he's not playing well and he's struggling, and maybe the outside shot isn't falling, and maybe he can't get the easy baskets in transition or as a lob threat, and he's getting pushed out of his spots against a stronger big, that's when I think the motor just kind of is a little bit up and down. But overall, I'm a huge fan of Alexander Sarr's talent. Now, as far as the offensive end, if the three-point shooting doesn't materialize, like right now, if you look at the numbers on paper, he's not a great three-point shooter. If it doesn't materialize, then it kind of limits how impactful he can be, because if he puts it together and the three-point shot is falling, that's when he's able to attack the floor in the half court as far as attack closeouts, put the ball on the floor. I mean, he's really good at attacking long closeouts. He gets to the rim, and I mean, with this long strides to the rim, and then he can make the right passes. So I think the three-point shot is the dimension that will open his game up on the offensive end. But right now, the shooting flashes are there, the percentages aren't there. But if he can put it all together, again, the sky is the limit for Alexander Sarr. The pull-up, I like the pull-up. I think he's an efficient pull-up shooter. There is a tendency to settle for that as opposed to always attacking the rim. But I think he doesn't always attack the rim or play with a lot of physicalities because right now he just doesn't have the strength and the bulk to play through contact all the time. But the jumper is more so like a sweet spot for him. So if he can find a way to mix it all in, be an aggressive finisher at the rim, but also shoot the mid-range pull-up and the three-point shot without falling in love with the three-point shot, because I think the three can like bail the defenses out. I would love to see him, again, play in the paint first, establish the mid-range, and then the three-point shot. And then once he's making threes, like I said, he's attacking closeouts, and that's where he's drawing fouls, drawing doubles, and then that's when his advanced passing skills can be displayed. But I want to get back to the rebounds. I think he's an okay rebounder, not a great rebounder, and I think that is part of the motor issues. He has the tools, the lift, the vertical pop, the quickness to be able to grab 10 rebounds every time he plays at least 25 to 30 minutes. And right now, I mean, he's just not putting up crazy double figures in rebounds, but the physical tools are definitely there. And then as far as the decision-making, like I said, I'm a fan of the passing. I think he has the vision, but right now he's averaging more turnovers than assists. And, of course, he's not playing like a huge significant role for Perth, but I think once he's in the NBA, and especially if he's a number one pick, you're going to see him have a bigger role because, you know, when you're selected that high, the team is going to put you in the best position, at least for the most part, the best position to succeed. So if he can become have a positive assist to turnover ratio, I think that can go a long way in maximizing his draft stock. So with that all being said, I think Alexander Sarr is the number one pick in the 2024 NBA draft as of today. Obviously, things can change. We still have some time between now and the draft, but he would get my vote for the number one pick in the 2024 NBA draft. Well, that wraps up this episode on the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast. Once again, subscribe to the channel. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. And in the next episode, I'm going to talk about Nikola Topic. I'm going to share my thoughts on why I think he could be the number one pick in the 2024 NBA draft. You don't want to miss it. Once again, it's Rafael Barlowe, and I am out.